My name is Brandy Walton, and I am speaking to you today on behalf of Them Before Us, the only organization solely devoted to defending children's rights and family. I was invited by Alliance Pro Rodinu and am honored to speak to you, the conference in the House of Commons in the Czech Republic. I want to talk to you about the population who is most at risk when we redefine marriage: children. Marriage and parenthood go hand in hand. And when we redefine marriage, we redefine parenthood as well. Mothers and fathers will become optional in law if gay marriage is legalized. The problem is, from the child's perspective, mothers and fathers are never optional. My mother and my father divorced when I was a year old. After their divorce, my mother did not allow my father to see me again. Somewhere around the age of 4, my mother began dating women. I remember feeling that something wasn't right. And whenever I got to start going over to friends' houses and staying the night, friends who had a mom and a dad and they lived with them, I began to understand what was different about the way that I was being raised. I was jealous of my friends. I was jealous of them having a father that spent time with them, that they got to hug and love on and be cherished by. I wondered what it would be like to be hugged by a man, to be held by him, to be comforted by him. I wondered what men smelled like and just what their personalities were like and what it would be like to live with one constantly. About the age of 7, was when I really began to understand that my mother was a lesbian. And I remember being completely devastated when it connected in my brain what she was, because it meant that I was never going to have a father, that I was never going to live with a man before I left her home. And it was devastating and it was sad to me. And the fact that my mother would not allow me to see my father, she wouldn't allow me to have pictures of him, to speak with him, with my grandparents, whom I got to have contact with. They were not allowed to talk about him with me. So it was this person that almost didn't exist because she had completely erased him. And it was excruciating. I spent hours as a child fantasizing about what he looked like, what his voice sounded like, the places that he would take me, and the things that we would do. At some point, I began waving at every airplane that flew over my house because I thought, what if he's in the airplane? And what if he sees me? I wanted him to know that even though he wasn't there, I still loved him. Unfortunately for me, the fantasy of what it would be like to meet my father did not come true. Whenever I met him, whenever I was 16, it was as though too much time had passed and we never really clicked with one another, and we were never capable of developing a true father-daughter relationship. And at 37 years old, I still feel robbed of that opportunity. It's not fair that it was something that I didn't get to have. 2 mothers never made up for the absence of my father. Having love, and I did have love from two women could not make up for not having his love. I would like to first point out before answering this question that as a child, I would have never said anything that could have been taken negatively against the way that my mother lived her life. I was very protective of her and took it very personally anytime anyone said anything hurtful or anything that could be discriminatory against her. As the gay marriage debate in America began to really ramp up, and as I watched people try to paint this picture that homosexual marriage and homosexuals raising children was good for the children and that the children fared just as good as children raised in heterosexual families, I felt an obligation that I had to share my story, that I had to let people know that the way that I had been raised affected me. It affected me deeply, and that it still affects me as an adult. Once I shared my story, I was called all sorts of names, and now I understand why more kids don't speak up. I actually had people raised the way that I was raised who contacted me privately through my blog and thanked me for doing what they didn't feel they could do because they were afraid of losing what little family they had. Wherever gay marriage goes, the rights of children to their mother and father are weakened. In the U.S., there's no longer any political institution that recognizes that children should have a mother and a father. To do so constitutes discrimination. In Ireland, the words mother and father are replaced by parent on birth certificates. Finland passed a law last year which allows one woman to declare herself the parent of her partner's child at birth. Within a year of Australia legalizing gay marriage, New South Wales proposed legislation to extend surrogacy services to single and gay men. In fact, you would be hard-pressed to find any country which legalized gay marriage while simultaneously strengthening children's rights to both biological parents. The Czech Republic ratified the UN Convention of the Rights of the Child in 1993. The treaty places a child's right to be known and loved by their mother and their father at the top of the list. If you legalize gay marriage, how will you continue to protect this primary child right? The answer is, you can't.